You talked about mainstream Igbo. What is that? I don't think there's anything called mainstream Igbo. Because, you see, if we go back a little bit in history, even from the coup that brought, that truncated Nigerians' democracy, as far as I'm concerned, and put us in the quandary we seem to be in 1966, one of the major participants was a young man called, he was a major, Zogo. He's from Okpanam. Okpanam is just 2 minutes away from Asaba. It's more or less the same place as Asaba, which makes him an Oshimili Igbo person.
Unafuna, bonya na interview wonya Anioma Delta State. Nas na ndebe ha na-ewe iwe gbasalụ etu esi eme election na Nigeria. Ife onyonyo emere ụwụ tupu eme presidential election ka ajụrụ ya. Fadịka last year mgbe ọ ka na-ekpo ọkụ. Ewe jụọ esi ya kele ife melu ndebe ha na-ewe iwe si na ndị Southeast Igbo na-agụpụ ha. Ebe ọ na-achọ onye awụ Igbo president. Asị na ndị Southeast Igbo na-agụpụ ha na ọ dịka mgbe ha na-ekweta na ha awụ ndị Igbo dịka etu Amaechi si eme. Amaechi ma Wike na ụfọdụ n'ime ha mgbe a na-ekwetakarị na ha awụ ndị Igbo wụ mgbe a na-enwe ndọrọndọrọ ọchịchị. Mgbe aka ha bịa so na ha akwụrụ ndị Igbo ka ha wee nweta the population. Mana etu o si wee dị na emechakwa ndọrọndọrọ ọchịchị ha agụpụkwa onwe ha. Ha wee na-ajụ ya kere ife wu iwe ha na ụfọdụ n'ime ha ebidogo kwuo na ndị Igbo na-amapụ ha. Nya ka o bidokwa na-aza na mainstream Igbo nya Igbo of Southeast na-amapụ ha. Nya ka ọ na-aza nda ka ife na-aza mainstream Igbo na enweghị mainstream Igbo. Alakwala m ife o kwuru ọ tọrọ m obi aṅụrị hinne. Achọrọ m ka oge ruo mgbe ọ ya awụ isi onye Anioma na ọwụhọ meni Igbo. Ọ gwakwa gị nwawo onye Anambra ma ọ gị nwawo onye Imo ma ọ gị nwawo onye Ebonyi ma ọ gị nwawo onye Abia ma ọ gị nwawo onye Enugu na nyanwa ka gị wole Igbo re ọ ife achọrọ ka ọ na-eme ọ malitewego maka na ụfọdụ na-eji aka ha ndị awụhọda ndị Igbo ndị agha asụ asụsụ Igbo jizi aka ha na-asị na ndị Anioma awụ ndị Bini na ndị Anioma awụ ndị Igbo mana ọ ya aka mma ka anụkwa n'onu ndị Anioma obee ka unu si. Ọ ya akakwa mma ka a na-ege ntị na ụdị onye a na-ekwu okwu kịta. Ọ na-afụgono ọ na-akọwata na abịado mgbe agha bidolu kele ndị n'ụlọ ọgụ a.
You are from the Anioma Oshimili side of the river Niger, and you know, we hear that people who are not mainstream Igbos, the Igbos in Delta, the Igbos in rivers, they are also saying, look, if there's going to be the zoning of the presidency of Nigeria to, you know, the Southeast, then those who pay the price as, well, permit me to use the word, Igbo subgroups, you know, are also good enough to represent Igbos. But the dilemma here is that people from all the other ethnic groups that we mentioned, they also belong to the Southsouth. They are not mainstream Igbos. So why is this, you know, a big issue about we are also Igbos? You know, because if the thing goes to Igbo land, we too are part of the Igbos. And if so, who are your favorite candidates, possible candidates from the marginal Igbo groups?
Fine, Ruben. Thank you for having me once again. You made a comment which resonated with me, and that is one of the main reasons why I'm here this morning. You talked about mainstream Igbo. What is that? I don't think there's anything called mainstream Igbo. Because, you see, if we go back a little bit in history, even from the coup that brought, that truncated Nigerians' democracy, as far as I'm concerned, and put us in the quandary we seem to be in 1966, one of the major participants was a young man called, he was a major, Zogo. He's from Okpanam. Okpanam is just 2 minutes away from Asaba. It's more or less the same place as Asaba, which makes him an Oshimili Igbo person. From that axis, the Anyocha Oshimili area, we speak exactly the same kind of, when I have a discussion with any brother of mine across the Niger, he understands what I'm saying. There might be little fluctuations of one word. We can say shine, they can say rine, you know, and little things like that. But in the main, it is the same dialect, it is the same language. Now, when you look at even the effort of the Biafran War, you know, and I want to talk about personal experience here, you will see that the Oshimili and Nyocha Igbos were even the ones that bore most of the brunt of that war. Both in terms of course, the Asaba massacre is known to everybody. I don't think any town, either in the southeast or anywhere in Nigeria, suffered as much as the Asaba people did, with the kind of killings and the program that went on in Asaba on that fateful day. Why was that so? If you think those people, the federal troops did not have enough intelligence to tell them that this town was solidly behind the Biafran agitation. My late father was a medical doctor who was practicing in Benin at the time when the Civil War broke out. I was barely 6 years old, my two elder sisters. And my mom is of the Yoruba extraction. She had a choice of taking us to her parents in Ibadan where they were living. But she said, no, wherever my husband is going, I'm going to go with my husband. And they put us in two cars and we went across. They went to look for an old friend of his that they were all in Benin, who lived in Oka, Chief Dom Mosu Njikoka, as they called him. And we stayed with him in his house in Oka, and both families became one, and thereafter we ran from one town to the other throughout the 30 months of the Biafran Civil War. Obviously, if my father did not take us away, possibly I might not even have been here, because the children were killed, women were killed. There is no family in Asaba that did not suffer the loss of one person or the other, a man, woman, or child. Because don't forget, when those federal troops came to Asaba, the idea was that, oh, come and welcome the federal troops, they are here. And they all gathered the people in the open field, and then they opened fire on them. So whenever I hear this talk about Igbo presidency, and people are trying to say there is some subgroup of Igbo or there's mainstream Igbo, it doesn't resonate with me. Because you see, the Anioma people, or rather the Oshimili Anyocha people, will always be shortchanged in Nigeria. Let me tell you a little story. In 1999, when the new democracy started, it was everywhere. It was an open secret that the person that was tipped to be the secretary to the Federation at that time was Chief Philip Asiodu. He is my godfather, he's my uncle, he took me into government. We all know his antecedents, super palmsec, you know, very cerebral and everything. He's one of the custodians of Nigerian history and political economy and everything. And he was supposed to be the secretary to the government of of Nigeria at that time. And just before the announcement was made, they decided that, oh no, since a Southeasterner, an Igbo man, was going to be number 3, that is the Senate president, you know, the Wazobia thing. There was going to be a president from the West, a vice president from the North, and the Senate president from the East, as it were, who was an Igbo man. Now, they refused to make it, he was not confirmed as the SGF anymore, which was supposed to be like number 6 or whatever in the hierarchy, because he was an Igbo man. So at that time, it was, he conveniently lost that position because he was Igbo. But they didn't remember that he was also Southsouth, because the whole idea, they said they had to look for a true Southsouth Nigerian, and that's how Ufo Tekaite was made the secretary to the government. So you see, when it's convenient, we are not Igbos. When it's convenient, we are South-South. When it's convenient, we are not South-South. When it's not convenient, we are not Igbos. So you see, they can't keep picking and choosing for us all the time.
But what about those who shut the door against themselves? You have prominent politicians in this country who switch hats depending on which way the wind is blowing. They also choose to be South-South one day and, Southeast the next day. I'd like you to address that.
You see, there are too many injustices in Nigeria already that we are complaining about. I, as an Igbo man, am complaining that an Igbo man has not been president. So my father is from Asaba, but he is Igbo. And that is what we are talking about here. That makes me come from the South-South as a geopolitical zone and an Igbo man. So what I'm trying to say is simple. Whatever we do, let us just be true to ourselves. Because if we keep shifting this goalpost just to favor, our own selfish interest at that time, then it will always come back to haunt us. And that is why the problem is like this. That is why the problem with political leadership in Nigeria is intractable. And that is why we must get to a point where it has to just be about meritocracy.
Ono na maka onye na-akpọ air raid achụzia nyelu nsogbu kpara ike n'agha. Onye Delta Igbo side ya. Ọ na-anụkwa maka nzọọgwụ. Ono nụkwa maka ndị akpọrọ ịma eji wee sị Igbo coup. Akwụna ndị niile amekwala eji wee sị na Igbo coup, ndị dịka nzọọgwụ, ndị dịka ife ajụna. Ụfọdụ ndị Ọnịcha, o nwere mgbe anyị sị na ụfọdụ ndị Ọnịcha na-akpọ anyị ndị Igbo. Ebee ka ha si bịa? Kedu ife mere eji wee kpee coup? The two people lead ife a. Ndị Igbo Anioma bidolu coup aha. Mana ọ ewute anyị nwawo ndị Igbo ndị Southeast nabatala ife ọwụ na-akpọrọ ya maka na onye Igbo tinyere aka, anyị nabatara ya. Igbo wu Igbo ebe ọwụ na onweghị onye ka wee wụrụ Igbo. Onye a na-agwa gị na ịka ha ewụrụ onye Igbo. Onwe ife dị ka mainstream Igbo. Igbo wu Igbo hapụgodo na ife kwuru. Enwere ebe na Rivers State na-azụ obi Igbo. Mana ife niile awụ ma ife mechala ka anụchala agha ebido gbanwegasịa. Asị gị na ebe ewu obi Igbo nyaụ anya kpọcha Igbo na-abịa na asị ka ekwuo. So alike m ife nwoke a kwuru wee sị ka m gbasa alụ na ya ka ụnụ nene